Good morning, Southern Idaho. It's another beautiful Friday morning here. I'm Carter, and today we're going to talk about waking up the lawn. So starting here in the next 2 weeks, water's going to start getting turned on for a lot of folks. So that means we can turn on the sprinklers, we can start watering our lawns. Now is a really good time to ask yourself, what kind of goals do you have for your lawn this year? Do you need to thicken up some thin areas? Do you have a really bad weed problem you'd like to fix? And now's the time to really start thinking about that. So we get a lot of questions in here asking about what's a weed and feed, what's a pre-emergent, what's a post-emergent, how do I seed correctly, what kind of seed do I need to use? So today we're gonna kind of go through all that right now. So ask yourself, if you have some kind of patchy or really thin spots in your lawn, if you have dogs or something like that, it might be a good time to think about overseeding this year. In this spring. And what overseeding is you're literally just going out and you're putting new grass seed out on top of your existing lawn. And what this does is it gets the seed down in there and it helps to kind of thicken up your lawn a lot more. I would recommend for a lot of folks, if you're thinking about doing a really big reseeding or overseeding project, do what's called dethatching your lawn. Dethatching your lawn can be done in 2 different ways. You can actually go to any one of the rental centers around Twin Falls area and you can rent a dethatching machine. And what it is, it has these big tines, these big rakes in there. And what it does is it rakes up the thatch in your lawn. And what thatch is it's basically just these dead layers of grass that builds up over time. And if you go ahead and put seed on there, it can be really difficult for your grass to germinate on top of that. You want to have nice bare soil for that grass seed to come in contact with. And dethatching your lawn will really help you out and really get that grass seed to go a really long way. So when you're deciding between grass seeds, we have basically just 2 different kinds of mixes here. I know right now they just really don't look that different right now, but for the vast majority of us here in the valley, we have a bluegrass. Bluegrass is a cool season grass. It's very, very tolerant of traffic, which makes it very, very highly sought after. And also it really, really loves the sunshine. So if you have areas with lots of sunshine, you're gonna do some walking around on there, bluegrass is gonna be your ticket. The one thing to think about with bluegrass though is, you wanna make sure it stays fairly well watered throughout the year. About 1 inch per week is kind of the rule of thumb. Studies have shown out there that for taking care of lawns that require some water, you're actually better off doing that 1 inch of water once per week rather than splitting it up into smaller intervals throughout the week. And what that does is that heavier watering, it saturates the soil more and it forces your grass roots to go down deeper, making it more tolerant of dry spells for when we get even much hotter in the summer. So for those of us that maybe don't have an in-ground sprinkler system, or we're just looking to save water, I highly recommend our other mix here, which is what we call our low maintenance mix. Like I said, it doesn't look that much different from the bluegrass. But this here is a mix of different types of fescues. Specifically, it's composed of one kind of actually native grass to the western United States. I believe it is a native, is a sheep fescue, as well as 3 or 4 other types of fescue. Fescue is a much finer textured grass. And it doesn't require as much water as a bluegrass typically, and that has to do also with its naturally deeper root system compared to the bluegrass. The only caveat with a low maintenance mix, aka our fescue mix, is it's not quite as tolerant for foot traffic as say the bluegrass mix is, but we also have some other types of fescue in there that are also shade tolerant. So if you have some areas that are say a little too shady and the grass doesn't stick too well and you would like to have some turf grass there, that would be a really good option to try to get established lawn in. In fact, when you come to our store or many other stores, you might see products like this too, like this thicker lawn. And make sure you always try to read the bag on here because it'll tell you the types of mix of grass you have in here. And typically these will actually have both a bluegrass and fescue in there, because really the goal of using something like this is to just get any sort of grass to start growing. So it's a really good idea because you'll kind of get some bluegrass where there's lots of sun, you'll get some fescue where there's not so much sun, and advertised like it says, you'll get a thicker lawn between some different types of grasses. So if we are using if we are going to go ahead and overseed or do any sort of seeding in our lawn this year, you want to stay away from what's called a pre-emergent herbicide. And we'll come this way, we'll show you what some of these look like. So really common types of pre-emergent herbicides are from brands like Casseron and Preen, and even Roundup makes one too. They're usually marketed as a weed preventer or something like that. Stops weeds before they start. And the reason why you don't want to use these when trying to seed in your lawn, it's simply because pre-emergent herbicides are used specifically. The way they work is they actually stop seeds from germinating. And obviously if you're going and you're going to be spreading a lot of seed in your yard this year, you don't want to have that being prevented from happening. So what you will opt out for is if you want to do reseeding but also take care of weeds in the season, you'll have to opt out for what's called a post-emergent. And a post-emergent is literally just any sort of herbicide that you use after the weeds already germinated and already started growing. And that's what the rest of these shelves up here are for. Many of us are familiar with the Roundup brand. Roundup is a herbicide made out of a chemical called glyphosate, and glyphosate, you know, it's the main ingredient in specifically in just the standard Roundup and some of these other ones. But if you ever read the labels on some of these other brands, you'll see it's the exact same compound. So glyphosate is non-selective. That means that anything green that it gets sprayed on, it takes it out. So typically it's not recommended for areas of the lawn. So many a times we'll opt out for something down here on the bottom shelf for different types of selected ones. Roundup makes this kind here, which I believe is 2,4-D or dicamba. Those are two selective herbicides that specifically target broadleafs. Things like dandelions, clover, anything that has a broad leaf compared to grass, which has a thin leaf. And then, you know, if you have specific crabgrass problems, then we can get into the whole crabgrass killer, stuff like that. So that takes us between our pre-emergent, our post-emergent, and that brings us to the next part, which is weed and feed. Weed and feed is literally, it kind of is exactly what the name says. It weeds out the lawn and it also feeds the lawn. So there's lots of different kinds out there. Just make sure that you're reading your labels when you're picking out your weed and feeds. For example, this Turf Supreme here is a 16-6-8, and it also has Trimec. And Trimec is a selective herbicide, much like that Roundup, feed the lawn, or save the lawn, kill the weeds sort of thing, where it leaves grass alone but it kills broadleaf plants. So this is a weed and feed with a post-emergent in there. Also here we have Dimension, which is an 1804. And what this is used for here is specifically for crabgrass control. So Dimension is a little bit on the funny side to where it does a really good job at taking care of crabgrass as a post-emergent, but it's also very effective as a pre-emergent, specifically for crabgrass. So if you have a lawn that you've had lots of issues with crabgrass, this would work very well, but just keep in mind that it's most effective as a pre-emergent. So if you need to take care of crabgrass, maybe wait till next year to do your reseeding, or do your reseeding this fall, because a lot of times these things can have an effect on soil for many, many months. So I think that covers, for the most part, a lot of stuff for when it comes to the lawn. When we get closer into the season a little bit, I would like to go ahead and talk about specifically how to fertilize, but here in the valley, it's also very specific for everyone's different needs. So this year, what we got in our soil test kits. And these soil test kits are very, very handy. What you do is you come to the store, you pick one of these up, you can go into the lawn, you can dig up some soil, you'll put it into a bag with a prepaid envelope, they mail it off, and then they email you your soil test results with very, very specific application rates. In fact, it'll even tell you which fertilizers that come into the store or purchase online from us and at what rates you want to apply those. So we just got these in. These are very, very helpful for making sure you feed your lawn, and not just your lawn, but your garden and your other plants the best way you can. So, I guess for the most part, that covers most of what I want to talk about for waking up our lawns for this year. So now that stuff's starting to wake up, we are going to start introducing a shrub of the week and a tree of the week. So we're going to step outside here. My shrub of the week has been going off the shelf, so I gotta see if I can find one. So blooming right now is the shrub of the week. This is a Nanking cherry. Nanking cherries are native to China, hence the name. And what's really great about these, this is actually a bush type cherry, and it is extremely, extremely drought tolerant once established. These things can get kind of big, but they're somewhat manageable with some pruning. But without any sort of pruning or anything, usually they'll get just shy of 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide. They are by far one of the earliest cherries to bloom. And what's also great about them too is, if you're interested, you can actually get edible cherries off of these. I personally haven't tried any yet, but I'm told that it's a nice combination between a tart and a sweet cherry. But this is a shrub that's, you know, fairly underutilized in the valley, but I think moving forward, I think this would be a very, very good plant for this area, given its drought tolerance, given its early blooming, which is really, really nice for our pollinators, our bees out there. Early season can be very, very hard to find some resources for our bees, and so finding stuff that blooms really, really early is helpful for them. And then moving on to our tree of the week. I'm sure you guys have seen these blooming around town already. This is our ornamental plum. Specifically, this is called a thundercloud. Here at our store, we carry typically two different kinds of ornamental plum. It is the thundercloud, which has a very nice upright form, which with this large one, you can actually get a pretty good idea of how nice and upright it is. So this works really well if you're planting it next to like a driveway or somewhere where you like to get stuff underneath. And then the other one, I don't have any quite in yet, but we will have plenty, is the Newport plum. The Newport plum is the exact same as the thundercloud plum here. Puts on these beautiful pink flowers early in the spring, and then purple leaves in the summer. The only difference is it's got that much more of a rounded shape. And both of these trees, you know, they're really manageable for size. They very rarely get much over 20 feet tall. So a really, really good option for a front yard, somewhere where you might not have too much space, but you want something that blooms really nice and early too, but doesn't take up too much space, and it's not too terribly messy either. So, shrub of the week, Nanking cherry, tree of the week, ornamental plums. So I guess that wraps it up for this week's Facebook Live. We're taking lots of suggestions, so if there are subjects you guys want to know more about, or you guys just want me to go on and ramble about something specifically you're having issues with, or if you're even new to the area and you just want to know about how in the heck do you garden around here, please let us know, and we'd love to get these suggestions so we can post about it, so we can talk about it, and make sure that these videos and these social media posts are tailored towards you guys out here. So thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next time.